guys, gals, and non-binary pals. It is Shamisha here today. I'm gonna be telling shifting stories from my George DR. I do want to start this out by saying that I have been shifting to this specific DR a year in current reality time. I hope you guys enjoy the stories. This is over years of time in that desired reality because I would go to the DR for like long periods of time. I have left Hogwarts in that DR, but I'm just gonna go over some of the stuff that happened throughout those years. So this is gonna kind of be a long video, but enjoy. Missing someone. Missing someone. Missing someone. With this DR, I started in 4th year, which for me, 4th year is the year that everyone turns 18 because I do have everyone aged up in the DR. And that was the first shift I ever did to this specific DR. This was one of my first shifts ever, like ever. This DR was unscripted, so anything that has happened in it, like the way that other characters feel about me, I didn't really script any friendships or relationships. That's what I mean by unscripted. I didn't script friendships, I didn't script relationships, none of that. But like I did script in the regular stuff that I do, which is like racism doesn't exist, sexism doesn't exist, stuff like that. So 4th year. This year I like thoroughly enjoyed in school for one. Like my goal for this DR was to get a really good career in the wizarding world because why not? Like if I can, I want to. So I was like thoroughly enjoying my classes. I had divination with Trelawney this year and we were learning about horoscopes, which I thought was super cool that like we got to do astrology in divination like at Hogwarts. It was so exciting. I loved it. I am actually surprisingly good at divination. Like, it's not only the class that I enjoy the most, but it's one of my best classes. And I did this because I really wanted to go into alchemy, and like I said, I really wanted to be a successful wizard. So I was like, I have to be good at this anyways, because I needed an O in like a lot of my classes in order for me to take the newts later on. If you've watched any of my other shifting stories, you would know that I suck at potions. I still suck at potions, but like when I say I suck at potions, I don't necessarily mean like, oh, I suck. Like I did good because I made myself do good. I did end up getting an O, but like for me, that's the most difficult class. Like personally. It's hard, and also like I don't like the way that Professor Snape teaches. He's very monotonous in his lectures and he just talks and you're supposed to remember it and you can't take notes because he doesn't like that. So it's very hard for me to remember everything. I do end up having to take notes outside of class and I have to study a lot outside of class, but that's just something that I kind of set myself up for when I chose alchemy, because that means that I need to exceed at potions. So I have to try as hard as possible with potions specifically. If you don't know what the newts are, the newt, it's technically an acronym N-E-W-T, Nationally Exhausting Wizarding Test. It's a test that I have to take so I can pass, and you have to take them for certain careers if you want them, which I needed to do, but you're not allowed to take the newts unless you get an O in whatever like you're trying to go into. So for me, I needed an O in potions. I did not have a lot of like close friends at this point in time. I could tell that when I shifted there that like Pansy and I were close-ish, but like we clearly weren't like close. So that was fun, I guess. But it did kind of surprise me because I was in the library and then George and Fred came up to me and they were like, hey, we're having a party, you should come. And I was like, is this a joke? And they were like, why would we be joking? We're inviting you to a party. And I was like, you're inviting me? And they were like, yeah, you should come. And I was like, and what if I don't? And then they're like, then you won't have fun. And I was like, I'll think about it. And then they were like, we'll see you there, which I hadn't said yes, but I decided that I would go, even if they were overly confident that I would go. I wanted to go on my own time and energy, so I would, and I did. The party was so fun. First of all, I went into the Gryffindor common room. I had to like sneak in there. That was not fun nor easy. We're not going to talk about that. It's fine. This is where I ended up meeting Ginny Weasley. Like, I knew of Ginny Weasley, obviously, like, because I had shifted there, but, like, I didn't personally know her in this DR. Like, we had never spoken, so this is us meeting. I met her at the party. We stayed together for most of the night, although George and Fred did want to talk to me a lot, and I kind of wanted to talk to Ron, because originally, like, I wanted to be with Ron because I don't know why, I just did. So I did talk to him a little. He was pretty cool. He did not seem very interested in talking to me, which is fine. It's cool. It's whatever. It didn't hurt my feelings at all. I'd asked him about classes and stuff, so that was definitely the issue. And he told me that his classes were like okay, and then he asked me to not talk about school. And he said that he hated talking about school, especially while he was at school. And I was like, well, why would you want to talk about school when you're not at school? And he's like, I don't. And I was like, makes sense. But I ended up hitting it off with the twins super well. They had me try some drinks that they were like making, which were definitely not alcoholic drinks. So then they had me try some drinks, and then I was like, okay, if I gotta try your guys' drinks, I want you guys to try my drinks. Like, this isn't a one-way street. I started trying my drinks, and we all just like traded drinks. Then Angelina came over and like asked to join too, so then we started trading drinks with her. It was really fun. And then for most of the night after that, I ended up going back with Ginny and just dancing with her and talking with her and having a good time at the party. And it was really fun, even though I should have been studying, but that's fine. We'll get into that later. After this party, the Yule Ball is like right around the corner, and I don't have a date. So I'm panicking just a little. So I'm like stressing out to Pansy, and Pansy's like, you should ask someone yourself if you want a date. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound fun. But I do it anyway, and I ask Ron if he will go to I can't talk. I ask Ron, and I'm like, hey, Ron, would you like to go to the Yule Ball with me? And he was like, actually, I was planning on asking someone else. And I was like, oh, sorry. And he's like, you're not really my type anyways. And I was like, right. And he was like, I'm more into blondes. And I was like, oh, I see. And he's like, but you have curly hair, so that's pretty nice. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And then he's like, wait, this isn't what I meant to tell you though. And I was like, okay. Because my feelings were a little hurt. He hurted my feelings just a little. Anyways. So then he was like, actually, I think my brother wanted to ask you to the Yule Ball. And I was like, your brother? Ask me to the Yule Ball? Why? And he was like, well, I'm pretty sure he fancies you, but that's besides the point. You should just go with him. You guys could have a fun time. And I was like, is he gonna ask me? And he was like, yeah, for sure. I think he's gonna ask you today. And then later that day, George Weasley, in fact, asked me to the Yule Ball, and I was feeling pretty good. And I was like, you know what? Ron rejected me, and a door closes, so a window opens. Makes sense. You know what they say, kids? If you can't have him, become his sister-in-law. I'm totally kidding. No one's ever said that except for me. But now that I've said it, it is a saying. I go to the Yule Ball with Mr. Weasley. It was super fun. So first of all, George was like one of the most fun people I could have went with. Fred went with Angelina. They were like insanely cute, for one. For 2, me and George, also insanely cute, hottest people there, and if you disagree with me, then sincerely screw off, because we were, and you know it deep down in your heart. I wore a very pretty blue dress, strapless, and I killed it. I looked so good. Yule Ball was super fun. I hung out with them, and like I had never really hung out with a bunch of Gryffindors before. My usual friend group, Draco, Blaze, Pansy, did not take very well to this. They were, one, like a little offended that I went with a Gryffindor, and then there were 2, double offended that I went with a Weasley. So that was the situation. We're gonna get into that later. Basically, the Yule Ball, chef's kiss, amazing. We literally had so much fun. We spiked the punch, which was awesome. We like danced for most of the night, and we didn't really like slow dance. It wasn't a romantic thing at all. It was sort of just like us getting to know each other, and George asked me a bunch of questions about like my home life and about my family, which I thought was really nice, and I was like, oh, maybe he does fancy me, okay. I also got to know Angelina and Fred pretty well too, so we all talked, and it was really weird because they were like explaining how me and Angelina were some of the only people who could actually tell them apart, and they were like asking us how we could tell them apart, and I was like, like body language, behavior, that's how. It's simple. And like voices, because the way they talk, it's not necessarily their voices, it's like the way they talk. It's different. It's different. I promise it's different. So like we were explaining that, and then George was like, oh, well, I know that I'm George because he's Fred and I'm George. And I was like, okay, I see you. I understand. After the Yule Ball, there was some drama. My sister, she comes up to my dorm and she like bursts the door open and she's like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, what's up? What's wrong? And she was like, you went to the Yule Ball with George Weasley. Why? I was like, why not? We kind of get into a tussle, and she basically says that like if our parents find out, they're gonna be really upset and disappointed and stuff like that, and that like they're gonna be ashamed of me for going to the Yule Ball with George. And she's like, I just don't think it's a good idea if you continue seeing him, and you should see someone that like our father will approve of. And I told her to stop being rude. She explained that she wasn't trying to be rude and that she was just trying to look out for me. And then I told her, I'm 18. You don't need to look out for me. Look out for yourself. And she said, thank you for being a mega. She literally said, thanks for being a mega bit. Talk to you later. And then left. Blaze and Draco also felt the same way, and they had a little conversation with me and asked if I really wanted to be around someone who was such a blood traitor, and I said that it didn't matter what I did, and I told them to stay out of my business. So that was nice. That same day, they kind of like avoided me and ignored me, but Pansy like stopped me and was like, hey, and I was like, hey, what's up? And she told me that she was shocked that I ended up going to the Yule Ball with George, but that no matter what happened between me and George, or how I felt for George, or how George felt for me, that she would never like judge me for that. And she said that deep down Draco and Blaze didn't judge me either, but that they had to hold off a facade, and that the facade would drop soon because they do care about me as a person. And like, it was a nice thing to hear, because it was stressful when Draco and Blaze were just like ghosting me in person. So her saying that was like reassuring, but also I didn't believe her because that seemed very out of character for both Draco and Blaze, but I understood that she was trying to comfort me. So I said thanks, and then she gave me a hug, which was really nice. Pansy smells really good and gives like the best hugs, so 10 out of 10. If you see her, you should hug her because she's good at it. While Blaze and Draco were completely like in person ghosting me, I decided that I was gonna hang around some other people, and those people being George and Fred. Originally, when I first started hanging around them, Lee was kind of wary of me because he had heard of my older brother, who is not very friendly and like kind of a horrible person. So he was a little scared of me, and he was also kind of nervous of my sister, but I tried to reassure him that I was not a horrible person. Thumbs up, I'm not horrible. And he didn't really believe me at first, but after some time he did end up coming around to me. So Angelina and I also started getting really close, and I started talking to her a lot, like more than most people. But after some time, Draco and Blaze were not as upset, so then I went back to my Slytherin friends, and I just continued being as good of friends with the Gryffindors as I had become. In between my 4th and my 5th year, I went back home to my parents' house. I caught up with them. I decided to take my sister's advice and not tell them about George at all. I was sending him letters. They did ask about it, and I said that we were really good friends, which technically wasn't a lie. We were really, 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 really good friends. But we sent letters to each other for most of the summer. We kept in contact, and I learned so much about like how George feels about the world, which is so amazing because he has like all these complicated feelings about like the weirdest things. He's very poetic. It's beautiful. But we were talking about like nature and why we think like people act the way they do, and then we were talking about like differences between the Muggle world and the Wizarding world, and like differences between certain Wizarding families, and we were just talking about like literally everything that summer. And right before school started, we saw each other at Diagon Alley, and he asked me to be his girlfriend, and of course I said yes, because I was like, why not give this a shot? Like, he's cool. They're funny. He's nice. Why not? Why not? So I decided I would. So we officially started dating, and then my 5th year started. George had told me over the summer that he and Fred were planning to make a shop later in the future, which I was super excited for, and had also confessed that he wanted me to help them like test out products and stuff, which I was like 100% I will do this. So once school started, we started meeting up after like curfew in the castle, which was really risky to test out products. During these times, George came out to Fred and I as non-binary. He uses he, they pronouns, and then I came out as non-binary because I use she, they pronouns, and I identify as non-binary. And yeah, so now we're officially a gay couple. Shortly after, like, we meet Umbridge and we realize that she is a total raging... There are words that I can use to describe that woman. I'm not going to say anything because I'm a nice person and I care about my studies and I care about my school. So, Harry creates Dumbledore's army. I am the only Slytherin student to join, which was a bit weird. Everyone was insanely wary of me at first, but I promised them that I was a good person and that I wasn't going to snitch to anyone. And they believed me after a little bit of time. I did end up having a talk with Draco, who suspected that I was in Dumbledore's army. He had stopped me one day when I was in the common room, and he was like, we need to talk now. So I said, hey, what's up? And he asked me what I was doing with all the Gryffindors so much. He asked why I had been talking to Harry, And then he asked if I knew what Harry was up to. And I was like, I'm not that close with Harry. I only talk to Harry because he's friends with Ron. And Ron is George's little brother. And Draco was like, I understand that, but I feel like you talk to him a little too much for it to be connected to that. And I was like, are you accusing me of lying? Like, I don't understand your issue. And he was like, I'm sorry that I was upset about you being with George at the Yule Ball last year. And I'm sorry that I haven't been as good of a friend to you as I should be. But I can tell when you're lying to me. And I know you're lying right now. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have to go. And he let me go to bed. So I did. Swag. You see, I think it was a good thing that I lied to Draco, because shortly after this, and by shortly, I'm pretty sure it was the next day. Like I said, I've spent years. It's been like years since that moment. So it was either the next day or like within the next few days, but it was like right after that, Umbridge decides that she has to talk with me. So she gives me truth serum, which little does she know, truth serum does not work on me. I learned my lesson from that. Trust me. So she gives me truth serum and starts questioning me, and I just lie straight through my teeth to this woman because she thinks I'm being honest. She has me on truth serum. Swag. You're done. You're done. She ends up believing everything I tell her because how could I lie? I get away with it. Then I have to talk with another teacher. Snape pulls me aside after class and he basically just gives me concern and asks me about George. And he's like, so what's going on with you and Weasley? And I was like, do you mean George? And he was like, of course I mean him. And I was like, well, not much. We talk, we hang out, we joke around. And then he was like, and there's nothing else going on? Something more than friendship? And I was like, of course not. Do we look like we're more than friends? And he was like, yeah, actually you do. And I was like, Professor, why are you even asking me about this? And he was like, well, you are an exceptional student. However, the Weasley twins are not exceptional students. And I just don't want to see you go down a path like that, especially hanging around people like them as often as you do. Of course, if you're only friends, then it shouldn't affect your studies. However, I have seen your studies go down since you have become so close with them during this year. And I was like, that's clearly a coincidence. And he believed me for the moment, but I don't know. He said he believed me, but I don't think he really believed me because he kind of just gave me a look and he was like, and then he told me to go off. So I left. A little bit after I left, I did see Hermione, who for some reason hates me. Not some reason. I end up figuring out why she hates me like years later. But anyways, she does hate me. She does currently still hate me. So this will never stop. But she was like, oh, did you get into trouble? And I was like, why would I get into trouble? I haven't done anything wrong. And she was like, really? Because I happen to know that both Fred and George left the common room last night. And I was like, how many times have you left the common room at night? And she just sort of glared at me. And I was like, interesting. And then I left. Speaking of leaving the common rooms, we did it again. We may or may not have turned the teacher into a toad. We didn't. We totally did. In our defense, Umbridge deserved it, for one, and for two, I regret nothing. And then Filch caught us, and we were in trouble. It's fine though. So I wasn't in trouble with Snape. However, I did get into trouble, and then I did have to do a detention with Umbridge. Let me tell you, detention with Umbridge, not fun. -10 out of 10. I never recommend it for anyone. So if you shift to Harry Potter, I got in trouble pretty often that year because I got caught with Fred and George a lot when I wasn't supposed to be around them, or I wasn't supposed to be out of bed. We're not gonna talk about that. That detention was the most memorable, specifically because we transfigured Umbridge into a fucking toad. It was amazing. And she put me into detention, which was not fun. She also put them into detention. But, like, anyways, I feel like me just saying that I had to do detention with her is enough explanation for what she made me do in detention. And I really don't want to get into detail about it. So, skip. Pansy is like, Monique, we gotta go hardcore for the owls. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Because Professor Snape was right. My studies had been kind of, like, lacking that year. So I was like, I have to snap back into it. Monique mode on. So we just start studying. I start literally, like, putting all of these notes on, like, the walls behind my bed, because my bed has, like, 4 posts and stuff. So, like, between the 2 posts by the wall, I had all of my notes, like, my most important notes, so I could look at them every single day and go over them when I woke up. Like, right when I woke up, I could just turn around and be like, notes now. I was a bit of a study-holic. Drugs being studying. I would never do any other drugs. 4th floor, girls' bathroom. Hermione's comments did not stop. Hermione decided to tell everyone that I'd go around. And George was like, when in the world has Monique ever gone around? She's only dated one person ever. And Hermione's like, oh, well, who? And George was like, me. And Hermione just kept starting stuff for no reason, all the time. And so eventually I talked to her and I was like, hey, can you, like, not do this? And she was like, why not? I'm not doing anything. I'm just telling people the truth that they don't see about you. And I was like, but it's not the truth. It's your truth. The truth is separate from your truth, which is something that George had told me, because, like, it's weird because, so when we were talking, like, they explained that they think that truth is relative, but, like, there is the truth, and then there is the truth to both sides of the story, and, like, the truth is, like, the underlying truth of, like, what happened from an outside perspective, but then both sides of the story is, like, this person's truth and this person's truth. So that's why when Hermione was like, oh, I'm just telling people the truth about you, I was like, you're telling your truth about me. That's not my truth. So it's not the truth. It's your truth. And she was like, still the truth in a way. And I was like, it's really not, though, because I don't go around. Because I haven't hooked up with anyone else. Because I've like only been with George. The truth is that I've been with George only. And she was like, I understand that, but you did ask Ron to the Yule Ball last year. And I was like, that was last year, Hermione. A year ago. And she was like, it still happened. And I was like, okay. That still doesn't mean I go around, because Ron and I have never been together, ever. I can already hear y'all in the comments. We don't need to go into detail about my rebuttal. She doesn't know anything, okay? But I was like, we've never been together. And she was like, you still tried. And I was like, okay, I don't try anymore. I haven't tried in a long time. And I'm not going to as long as I'm with George. And she was like, oh, so when do you plan to not be with George? And I was like, never. I plan to always be with George. Sorry, LOL. Take the L and move on. Stop telling people lies. She doesn't stop, but it's fine. I tried to talk sense into her. I guess she just doesn't listen to sense. She was getting on my nerves. It's fine though. It's fine. So right before holiday, I go up to my sister and I tell her that this holiday I plan on going to the Weasley's house because George told me that his mom has invited me to stay over a holiday to meet the family. And I'm like really nervous because I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna meet my partner's mom. But I tell my sister, and my sister was like, I need to ask you a serious question, and you have to answer to the best of your ability. And I was like, sure, what's up? And she was like, do you plan on, like, staying with him forever? Do you plan on, like, telling our parents eventually that you're with him? And I was like, of course I plan on staying with them forever. Like, this is my person. I even told her that. I was like, this is my person. I can feel it. Like, I'm very drawn to George, and they're very drawn to me, and I plan on staying with him for as long as I can, so hopefully forever. She was like, I support you, even if it seemed like I hadn't in the past, and I said thank you. Holiday begins. I meet Molly and Arthur for the first time, and I am introduced as George's partner. Molly basically thanks me for, like, helping George find themselves and helping him come out of his skin, because he said thanks to me, like, they figured out their identity with being non-binary, and I thought that was really nice because I came out at the same time as, like, they did, but he already knew that I was bi because we'd already, like, talked about that, so it was nice. It was a good talk, and we had, like, gotten into, like, talks about gender and stuff, and that's when later I was like, I think I do identify as non-binary. Over holiday, George confesses to me that he and Fred are going to drop out of Hogwarts this year, and that they're planning, like, this big way to drop out because they just want to focus on the joke shop, and that's where they think their future kind of lies, and, like, they've been deciding that. And I was like, I understand, and I think that's, like, a very good decision for you. And George asks me to drop out with them, and I say no, because I just feel like I can't, because I made this goal for myself to be a very good Hogwarts student. I want to finish this goal, and I'm not going to let my partner get in the way of that. I told George, I was like, I have a really big plan for myself that I do want to follow through, because, like, it's been my life goal, so I want to follow through with that. And then George was like, I understand, and I support your decision. I didn't think you were gonna say yes, but I wanted to ask you in case it was a want of yours, since, like, I had to put in so much work to, like, make things for the joke shop as well. And I was like, no, I completely understand. And then I even told George, I was like, I would love to, like, help you with the joke shop in a few years. I just want to finish Hogwarts. And George was like, that makes me so happy to hear you say. Harry and I also, like, bonded a lot over holiday because we hadn't been, like, alone together, which we still weren't really alone together, but I got to know Harry pretty well, because Jenny was also like, I have a crush on Harry, so I was like, I have to get to know him now. Like, I already kind of knew that was gonna happen, but we're not gonna talk about it. Ginny and Harry, still not together, but she likes him. Anyways, I get to know Harry, we kind of bond, and, like, he apologizes for thinking that I was a horrible person, and I was like, I understand. It's not like Draco's nice to you, so I think if I was in your shoes, I'd hate me too. And he was like, thanks for not hating me, for secretly hating you. And I was like, of course. Ron starts asking me to help him study because I'm super smart. I don't know why I put that in quotations. I was a really good student, but he starts asking me to study, and I was like, no. Because I already had Hermione on my back, and also I knew that I had feelings for Ron because I've dated Ron in multiple other DRs, so I was like kind of trying to stay away from him because I was like, you will distract me from my main goals, sir. I'm not helping you study. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm really busy, I have to help other people study, but, like, maybe later, but later never came, except for, like, one day in DA. I was one of the last people to leave, and then Ron, like, kind of stayed back, and he was like, we could practice together right now. And I was like, oh, aren't we supposed to be leaving? And he was like, well, I need extra practice, and you're really good, and you look free because you're still staying behind, so I think that we should practice together. And I was like, okay, well, what do you need help with? And he's like, can you help me show how you point your wand? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, move my hand. And I was like, okay, Ron, I'll help you, just let me help you. So I started teaching him, like, how I move my hand for wand movements and stuff like that. And then he asked me if I'd be willing to help him with potions later, and I said no. And then he asked, please, and I said no. I was like, I can't. I was like, I already told your brother that I was gonna meet up with him later. And then Ron was like, oh, well, I would, like, if, like, maybe you took one of those times off to help me. And I was like, I understand, Ron, but, like, my partner is my partner, and they come above most people. Like, that's my best friend, that's my person. And Ron was like, I understand, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to overstep your boundaries. And I was like, I understand you're not trying to, thank you. So that was a little awkward. Over the summer, I go between our house, Pansy's house, and the borough. It's like pew 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 all around. I had a pretty good summer, and then the school year started. Let me tell you, this school year was not nearly as fun as my 5th year because, first of all, George was not there. Fred also wasn't there. Like, that's sad. No offense, Fred, you can't see this anyways, but, like, obviously George, I do have a preference. that really sucked. And then my sister also had graduated Hogwarts, so I like didn't have her either. And then I also didn't have Adrian, my sister's boyfriend, who is also my ex in another DR. We're not gonna talk about that piece though. It was not a fun time. During this year, Draco became insanely distant. Like, insanely. Like, you thought him ghosting me in 4th year was bad? Nothing to this extent. But it wasn't like a distant as in like he seemed mad at me. Like, Draco just seemed upset. And it was concerning, especially because I already knew what was going on with him, but I needed him to tell me because I wasn't supposed to know what was going on. I become like insanely depressed because I'm bored and all I'm doing is just studying. That's literally all I do. Like for the first few pieces of the school year, I would just go to my classes, study, eat, sleep, repeat. So finally, Pansy in the middle of studying is like, what is your deal? And I was like, what? And she was like, what's wrong with you? You're not talking to anyone. You barely smile. You barely do anything. And I was like, right. I have to do this. I have to focus. I need to snap back into it. And she was like, I don't think you should. And I was like, why? And she was like, I mean this in the best possible way, Monique. I've never seen you happy until last year. I've never seen you willing to do anything that made you actually feel something until last year. And now seeing you go back into this mode of not caring is so hard. Knowing that you are naturally a happy, caring, flamboyant person. And I mean this in the best possible way, but I think you need to drop out. And I was like, but also she was right. Like, I had never been as happy as I was spending time with Dumbledore's army and Fred and George. Like, that was the most happy time for me. That was it right there. It made me the happiest person in the world, and it did show in my behavior when I came back to school. And I was like, no, you're wrong. And she was like, I think you know I'm right deep down. And I was like, I understand that you think you're right, but you're wrong. However, I kept her words in mind because she might know something. During this time, the only thing that really did give me like any happiness was the letters that George would send to me, and he sent me letters like every single day, genuinely every day. Just basically saying like, oh, I woke up today, here's what we're planning to do, and then at the end of the day, sometimes I'd also get like another letter. It was insanely nice. It kept me going. Like sometimes I would tell them that I needed words of encouragement because days got kind of blurry. Like all the days were blending in together. It was just like the same dull, monotonous, same things. It sucked without them. I think like the first interesting thing to happen to me 6th year was when I was eating and Ron came up to me. And Ron basically just expressed concern for Harry. And I was like, what's up? And he told me that he knew I was super good at potions and that he was concerned about like Harry because Harry had like a different potion book. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me see what the hell you're talking about. So I tried to talk to Harry, who did not let me look in their potions book. And I was like, Harry, if you need help in potions, talk to me. I'm here. I'm good at potions. I can help you. And Harry was like, well, I've been getting better marks than Hermione, like, with this, so I don't need your help. And I was like, I understand, but your friends are worried about you. I'm just trying to help. You don't have to take it, but it's there if you want it. Door is not going to close. Just know it's staying open. Because it's open for you. You have the key. All you gotta do is turn in the lock and come on in. Ask for help. It's there. And he was like, okay, will do. If I want it, which I don't. I started becoming close with Ginny this year because I need a person, which like my person is gone, so I need another person. Pansy also grows close to Ginny, which was super weird but super cool. So it was kind of like us three, and then we'd all study together, which Ginny is a little bit younger than us, so we would help her tremendously. Ginny got the best marks. Why? Because of me. Also because of Pansy, but like, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Pansy. But we ended up getting really close, and we kind of gossiped a lot, which was super fun. I really liked gossiping with them. We snuck Ginny into our dorm once because I gave her a polyjuice potion since I know how to make them. I'm pretty good at them after my times of polyjuice potions. So I did give her a polyjuice potion to look like me, and she said it was the weirdest experience of her life. And I was like, I know, imagine being as hot as me. And Ginny was like, I'm already hot, fuck you. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. But we ended up becoming like a trio that year and just hanging out all the time. But speaking of trios, what the fuck? That's not even a trio. That's like a foursome. Not literally. Me, Draco, Blaze, Pansy. Oh my gosh. I don't mean it like that. Anyways, we're just gonna pretend my wording wasn't horrible there. I needed to confront Draco because he is just, something is wrong with him, and I know what. But I, like, need to know what, you know? So I am like, hey, how are you? And he was like, I'm fine. And I was like, well, you don't look fine, so how are you? And he was like, I've already told you, Williamson, I'm fine. And I was like, okay, so since when did you start calling me Williamson and not Monique? And he was like, well, you're irritating me the way that someone who doesn't know me would. So I guess I should just refer to you as if I don't know you, right? And I was like, I'm sorry that I'm irritating you, but there's something wrong. And he was like, yeah, it's that life sucks. And you already know that life sucks. So stop asking me, Monique. And I was like, I'm asking you so you have a person to talk to that's not going to talk to anyone else. I'm not going to tell Blaze. I'm not going to tell Pansy. I'm not going to tell Vincent, and I'm not going to tell Gregory. And I'm not going to tell any of the Gryffindor people that you seem to hate so much, even though I know you secretly don't hate them. And then Draco was like, well, where did you get that impression? And I was like, I don't know, Draco. Where did I get it? What's wrong? And he was like, life just sucks. I already told you. And I was like, can you go into detail on what that means? And he was like, it's just family stuff, and I really don't want to talk about it. And I was like, I understand. Do you want help with, like, your classes? And he was like, do I look desperate? I don't need your help. And I was like, I'm not saying you're desperate. And he was like, okay, then stop offering me help. And I was like, I got it. Understood. I'm sorry. And he was like, can you just leave me alone, like, for the rest of the day and then not talk about this again? And I was like, yes, sorry. So I didn't talk about it again, because he didn't want to tell me. Shortly after this, Dumbledore pulled me into his office, which was really weird because I rarely talked with Dumbledore in, like, this specific DR, so I was like, I don't know why he wants to talk to me. He basically asks me just a bunch of weird stuff. He asks me, like, how I've been feeling, and then he asked me if I had talked to Draco a lot that year, and I was like, of course, Draco's my best friend. We talk all the time. And he was like, what do you two talk about? And I was like, random stuff, depends on the day. And he was like, I understand. I've been progressively worried about Draco's behavior, and I was like, Draco does not like talking about that and will not talk about that with me. And then Dumbledore was like, are you lying? And I was like, no. And he just, like, nodded and then asked me about the Weasleys. And I said that they were all doing good, because that was true. They all are doing good. We're doing good at that point in time. And then he sent me off. Like, it was a really weird conversation. I don't know. Like, that was the only time that I had ever, like, been pulled up to his office in that DR. Ever. Especially because, you know, he died shortly after that. But we're not gonna talk about that. But it was really weird. I don't know what he was trying to achieve from that conversation. I don't know if he thought I knew something about, like, Voldemort, which, like, I did, because I had shifted there. But, like, I didn't know anything. My older brother, Parker, visited, who, by the way, isn't like my brother in real life or anything, just like a random OC that I made when I was younger and I scripted to be my brother. He sucks. So he basically, like, visited me in the courtyard and then threatened me. And I was not down for that, and then he threatened George. So then I had to send George a letter and being like, okay, my brother is literally a horrible person and has threatened me and said that, like, he's gonna hurt you, so please be careful. Which, he didn't end up hurting George. He was all bark and no bite, I guess. But thanks for scaring the out of me. We had a party in the Slytherin common room this year. It was super fun. We had Ginny sneak in again because we love Ginny. The Slytherins basically adopted her this year, which was super fun because Ginny is literally, if you think about like wanting to go to a party someone, Ginny Weasley is the epitome of someone that you would want to go to a party with. Like, she's fun, she dances the whole time, she checks in on you, she's like, are you good? Can we dance? Can we do this? Do you want to drink with me? Oh my gosh, will you dance with me? Okay, wait. Did I spill anything on my dress? I can't tell. She's so fun. Literally the best. And then, like, if you have to go to the bathroom, she's like, I can hold your drink for you. I can grab it. Like, I promise. I have your back. We are in this together. She's amazing. Like, literally, mwah. Chef's kiss. Best partier that you'll ever meet. Pansy, same way. So fun, except for Pansy's a little less like checking in on you and more so, let's do stuff. Oh my gosh, let's run around. And then she's like, we need to go to the bathroom. If I hold your drink, can I have some? Like, that's okay, right? I'm drinking your drink, I'm sorry. She's also amazingly fun. So the three of us, we were amazing. We literally had so much fun. We ended up going back to the borough for holidays. My mom came one of the days because she wanted to meet the family, and then she wanted to like meet George as my partner because she was kind of like picking up that there was something going on. And then so she met everyone, and then she was like, and you're Monique's partner, right? And then George was like, because he knew that I like hadn't told my parents, and then they finally said yeah. And my mom was like, I just knew you two would get together ever since she started talking about you. I could just tell how she like said your name, and George was like, yeah, I knew she'd get together with me too. And I was like, honestly, both of you, I don't like either of you anymore. You are no longer my mom. You are no longer my partner. Disowned. I'm just kidding. I didn't say that I didn't break up with George. I want you to know it's a joke. And then I was like, all right, gotcha. Disowning both of you. This specific Christmas was insanely cool because like we always give each other gifts for like our birthdays and like Christmas and stuff, and just like randomly we give each other gifts too because that's what George and I do. It's just like the kind of relationship we have. It's like I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, this made me think of George, let me get it for him. Or like they'll see something and be like, oh, this thing, it made me think of Monique, let me get it for them. So vice versa. This was like the most sentimental present ever that George had like gotten me up to like this point. So it was like, whoa, because this was really like, we were already in a relationship for a while at this point, but this was where our relationship kind of turned into a serious one, which it was already serious, but like it turned more serious. I don't know. I feel like it was like a weird step, but it made us more serious at this point. He gave me this necklace, and it was just a heart with a emerald as like the heart. And George was like, I used to hate the color green. And I was like, why? Green's the color of grass. And he was like, well, because my dad would always talk about Lucius and stuff. And I was like, Draco's dad? And they were like, yeah. And whenever my dad would talk about Lucius, all I'd hear is horrible things. And it would be attributed to the fact that Lucius was a Slytherin and that his son was a Slytherin too. And then I ended up meeting like his son, and Draco's horrible. And then I was like, I understand. Why are you giving me a green necklace then if you hate green? And then George was like, well, I met you. And you're in Slytherin and you're really nice. And you're funny. And you're kind. And you have bright green eyes. And I love your eyes. So now I don't hate green. And I was like, that's really nice. Like, it was just so sweet because they had hated like this color and then ended up liking the color because the color turned from something that reminded him of only bad things into something that reminded them of purely good things, like strictly because of me. So like knowing that, I was like, okay, like it was really cute. It touched my heart, no pun intended. That same night, Molly and Arthur went to bed, and then Ginny was like, now that Mom and Dad have gone to bed, I have an idea for us, which it was me, Ginny, Harry, Ron, Fred, George, and Hermione. We're not gonna talk about her and my beef with her. Just know she's still beefing with me. She started all of this. And Ginny's like, I have fire whiskey, and I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. So we kind of have a little party. We all just like talk and joke around, and it's a good night. And even though Hermione hates my guts, she's not being so mean to me, so that was nice. A bit of a refreshment that I never got from her. So it was a really good night, and we all got to know each other. Then, like, in the next couple of days, I had a lot of serious conversations with George and Fred about, like, our future, because, like I said, I do feel like that necklace point was a turning point into making our relationship more serious, because at that point, it had kind of been, like, a school relationship where, like, we also did see each other outside of school, and we did communicate outside of school, and, like, our parents knew that we were together, and, like, I knew his family, and he knew my family. We were like, what are we gonna do in the future? Where is this relationship going? Actually, legitimately, for real, not just, like, in theory, oh, let's be together forever. What are we really gonna do to make sure this lasts forever? So we did have, like, relationship talks on, like, what we were gonna do in the future, and I confessed that I was now thinking about dropping out because studying that much was genuinely killing me and, like, making me insanely, like, I'm not saying that that was, like, why I'm depressed, because I am, like, diagnosed with depression in, like, my current reality. So I do struggle with depression, but I don't think that that was helping it. So I'm gonna say that it made me depressed, but obviously, like, that doesn't create depression, but it did definitely make it worse. I was not having a good time, and I was like, I'm miserable. Like, genuinely miserable without having you here, like, at Hogwarts, and I don't find joy in studying like I used to. And I don't know if I want to go into alchemy anymore. And George was like, that's for you to decide. And I was like, no matter what happens, I'm gonna, like, move into the joke shop with you guys. But I don't know if I'm gonna go to school next year. But I am for sure going to finish this year. And George was like, okay, awesome. And then I was like, I will keep you posted, though, because this is kind of a big thing. So it was at that point that we had, like, officially made a plan that I was, in fact, for sure moving in with them after we were all settled, which was kind of crazy because I was like, this is very serious. But I was also like, George Weasley likes me. I, like, am still just astounded, like, that he still likes me. It makes me so happy. Once I get back to school, my dad had sent me a letter, which was a rare occasion. Usually he sends me letters about insanely important things, which I always listen to because he's my dad and I love him. He sends me a letter about Draco and basically expresses his concern because he had talked to Lucius and he had talked to Draco over holiday, and Draco did not seem to be doing well. So I was like, I understand. I will keep an eye on Draco. I was like, I already tried to talk to him, but I'll just be an extra good friend, which I'd already been trying to do. Draco didn't want to talk to me. Shortly after I received that letter and got back from holiday, guess what happened? Dumbledore died. You know, I had to be sad. LOL. I didn't mean LOL. I meant, cry. Opposite of LOL. I was very upset because Dumbledore is clearly a very kind-hearted person, and I was like, oh no, he's dead. Oh no, our table, it's broken. Oh no, our Dumbledore, it's dead. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna stop making jokes. I don't like Dumbledore. Skip. So anyways, at this point, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna drop out. And I go inside and I'm like, I'm not coming back next year. Fuck this. I'm not going to school. I'm going to the joke shop with George and Fred. I'm gonna live my best life. I choose happiness. Screw school. I've already done so many years of school. I don't need this. I go back inside and Harry's like, I have an insanely big question to ask you. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, have you heard of Horcruxes before? And I was like, I mean, I've heard the word, but I don't know what it means, which is a lie. We're not going to go over that. Harry basically explains what Horcruxes are. Harry asks me to search for Horcruxes with him. And I was like, I can't do that, Harry. That is way too dangerous, and I am scared. And Harry was like, well, I know that you've talked about dropping out before. And I was like, I'm not dropping out to search for Horcruxes, but I am going to drop out. And Harry was like, please, I will literally ask you up until we search for Horcruxes. And I was like, you can continue to ask me, but I will continue to reject your question. I'm done with Hogwarts. I drop out. I invite George to a dinner with my family, basically to make it like official, which it's already like official, but I have them at a dinner at our house because we live in like this nice little house and George has never been to my house. So have George over for dinner. George says some things that makes my father not so happy with him, but we're not gonna worry about what George said. After this, I start moving in. I bring a little bit of my stuff there because I didn't want a lot. My dad, he wasn't very happy that I was with George. Also, George didn't really make a good impression on him, but it's fine. It's whatever. I genuinely didn't care because as I had been saying, the years previous, George is my person. I am for sure on George being my person in this DR. Like, it was clearly just, like, meant to be. So I was like, this is my person. F you. We are about to get Harry from the Dursleys, which we get there and we all have to disguise ourselves as Harry because we're being traced. It was not good. Like, for the people who are watching this who haven't seen Harry Potter, basically one of like the people that we went with, his name's Alistar, he died and then George got their ear blown off. So it was not a fun time. I did get hit in the arm, so I did have like a gash from my arm, but I was okay other than that. Harry felt like insanely bad, which I wasn't worried about myself. I was more so worried about George, who was just making jokes, but Harry felt really bad. But we all knew the risk of looking like Harry because that's what happens. We all wanted to help him. Harry once again asks me to help him search for Horcruxes, and I once again reject his question. I had fun at the wedding. I did dance with George, and then Harry asks me one more time if I will go with him, and I, one more time, tell him no. And he said he really meant it when you said you'd say no the whole time. And I was like, yes, I did. But I wish you luck, and I hope you don't die, because I care about you. And I hugged him, and he left. We set up my piece of where I'd be staying, which was really nice. And then I started like getting into life of like working at the shop, and it was really fun. Like, I don't know, it's weird because I've worked customer service in my CR, but it is a different experience because everyone's in there to like get things to have fun. Like, it's a fun shop and it was a fun place to work because everyone's in a good mood when they go in there. Most people are happy. It's really rare that you see someone who's not happy. So that was really nice. And we also lived in the shop and like slept in there and stuff, so that was really exciting too. Adrian, my sister's boyfriend, and also my ex in a different reality, he visits the shop and we talk for a bit and he gives me his blessing about my relationship with George, and I thank him because we didn't really like talk that much, but it was nice to have like my sister's boyfriend's blessing. Fred and George turned 23, so I celebrated. That was fun. We didn't do much this year. We just kind of had like a celebration at the shop, and then Fred was talking about like missing Angelina, so we did have Angelina over too, but we just had it at the shop. And Fred like had talked about missing Angelina when Angelina wasn't there, and we were like, oh, well, maybe Angelina should move in like soon. However, there's a lot going on. The twins and I enter through the tunnel from Hogshead. During this time, more people were sneaking in while Harry was like figuring everything out. He still hadn't like returned to Hogwarts. And once he did return, like, it was just it was a mess, to say the least. Basically, my biggest goal with this time is that Fred was not going to leave with Percy during this battle. That is all I made sure about, because I knew that if Fred went with Percy, Fred would no longer be there. So I was like, no, not happening at all, ever, ever. My older brother died in this battle, which wasn't that bad because he's like literally a horrible person. Threatened me many times. Was not good. It was not fun. Didn't enjoy it. I made sure that Fred and George stayed by me throughout the battle, but you know what I didn't do? Watch who went with Percy. And Percy came back to tell me that he had gone and it was my sister who went with him instead of Fred. Which means that it was my sister who died instead of Fred, which was really crappy. He had brought her body back, which was nice, but also not nice because I have that image ingrained in my head. A lot of other people died. Those are like the important deaths, like in conjunction to my family. Every other death was just like the canon deaths that happened during the war, which was still insanely horrible, but I've experienced the war a few times before this, so I kind of understood what I was getting into. After I had like literally cried over my sister's body, I decided that I needed to like get a breather, so I walked away from like the room that we were in, and I saw Harry like walking away, and I asked him where he was going, and he told me that he was the final Horcrux and that he needed to turn himself in. And I kind of paused because I didn't know what to say, and then he was like, "You can't say anything to stop me," and I was like, "I know, I just didn't know what to say." And he was like, "Oh, thanks for being a good friend." I was like, "You too." And then he hugged me, and I had hugged him really tightly because even though I knew he was gonna be okay, I still was a little scared. For one, because like there was always like the doubt in the back of my head. And then for two, he didn't know that I knew he was gonna be okay, and he didn't know that he was gonna be okay. So I gave him a tight hug, a tight one. And then I was like, "No matter what happens, I love you and I care." And he was like, "I love you too. Thank you." And then he left. He also told me to comfort Ginny once she realized he was gone, and I said I would. However, I was not telling her he left. I had sort of stayed around Ginny and George until everyone came back and Hagrid was carrying Harry. War carries on. Voldemort announces Harry's death. It's like horrible. Like literally everyone's screaming, everyone's freaking out. But then Harry ends up getting up and the battle pursues on. After the battle ends, I end up seeing Draco, who is like walking through the school because George and I did go back into the school. And he stops and Draco goes, "Hey." So I said, "Hey." He apologized to George for all the things that he had said about the Weasleys. And then he apologized to me for not being supportive of George and I. And then he gave us his blessing and said that he hoped that we never broke up. I said thank you, and George was like, "That was really nice of him." We broke up. I said thank you, and George was like, "That was really nice of him." Out of character nice. Soon after, Pansy comes in, she checks on us, especially me, considering that like my sister had just died. So me, Fred, and George all go back to the shop, and I kind of just take the next few weeks slowly since I'm still dealing with like the death of my brother, which didn't really affect me, and the death of my sister. People keep coming in to the shop to like visit and make sure that we're okay. And like my mom comes in a lot to check on us. Ron and Hermione came in to announce that they were together, so that was nice. And then it was officially my 22nd birthday and I had a surprise party. Fred and George invited all of my friends, so I really appreciated that. And shortly after, Angelina moves in because Angelina and Fred are together. Adrian visits because he wanted to talk to me about like Christine, which I completely understood. I wanted to talk about her with someone too, and he was the perfect person. I had a necklace that Christine had given me when we were kids, and it was just like a clear quartz crystal on a string. So I gave it to him and I was like, "I think that you should have this because she said that you give this to someone that you dearly love." And he was like, "Well, you don't dearly love me." And I was like, "I will always consider you a brother. And I know that she loved you and she would want you to have this." And he was like, I see. He left with the necklace. I still don't regret giving it to him. Over the summer, like, the sales of the shop were going up a lot. We were making a lot of money, which was really good. And I went to the borough to see Ginny because I love her, and she still is in school, so I did miss her a lot. Hermione still hates me though, so that was nice. Seeing her over the summer was not as fun. During the summer, I received a letter from Pansy, who really wanted to go to Paris, and she said that she had also invited Draco and Blaze, and I was like, why not? It would remind me of the good old times at Hogwarts, so I'ma go. I'ma have fun, because, like, they had just graduated, whereas, like, I had just missed the year. Like our last year, you know? Anyways, so we all go to Paris, and it was really weird because even though we had been friends like the entire time, there was so much that we all didn't know about each other. Like, Draco opened up about his parents, I opened up about my brother, we talked about like the war and how that affected all of us personally, and we, for the first time ever, actually talked about how we were actually feeling. Draco opened up about everything that was going on with him in 6th year, and Pansy was opening up on like how she like didn't like her mom, and she didn't like who her mom like stood for or anything. And then Draco was like, I feel the same way about my father. And we all just like, it was really nice to actually bond with them for the first time like that. So that was intense but amazing. Once I got back from Paris, we went to the borough, me, Fred, George, and Angelina. And when we went to the borough, I'm like giving away everything with my face. I'm so sorry. I'm just so excited. You will never guess what happened, because George basically is like, we should go for a walk. And I was like, are you going to kill me? And he was like, I don't know. You have to walk with me to come see. And I was like, understood. Got it. So we go for a walk outside, and we get to this lake, and he was like, do you remember the first time I brought you to this lake? And I was like, yeah, this is where you asked if I wanted to be with you for like a long time. And he was like, yeah, I remember. I just didn't know if you remembered. And I was like, of course I remember. And then he was like, speaking of being with me, and I was like, yeah. He gets down on one knee and he proposes. I was like, whoa, hello? I said yes. Go back to the borough, and we announce that we are officially engaged. Automatically, Hermione's like, why? Why would you get engaged? And I was like, why wouldn't we? And she was like, I just don't understand. Like, I understand that you two said forever, but that doesn't literally mean forever. Then she kind of came at me and was like, do you not remember when Monique asked Ron to the Yule Ball? And George was like, please do not tell me you just mentioned something that happened in 4th year. Hermione's like, I'm mentioning facts, the truth. Not just my truth, but the solid truth. And Ron was like, Hermione, that was years ago. It's in the past. Monique and I barely even talk, I swear. And Hermione was like, yeah, but it still exists in the past. And George was like, it does not matter, Hermione. None of us care. Nobody cares except for you. Then Hermione was like, whatever. Unlike Monique, I plan on finishing all 7 years of Hogwarts because I'm going back next year. And I was like, okay, your boyfriend's not going back, so I don't know why you're trying to make a stab at me. And she just like glared at me and was like, whatever. I'm going back because I care about my studies. And I was like, we all know. We know, Hermione. We're aware. Thank you for telling us what we already knew. On the way back, Angelina apologizes to me for how Hermione acted, and I was like, Angelina, I do not know why you're apologizing to me. You can't control her. And Angelina was like, you still don't deserve to hear like someone's crap about your relationship. And I'm sorry that Hermione thinks that it would be a shame for you guys to be sisters-in-law. And I was like, I don't care. She hates me. She's always going to hate me, and I understand that. And I'm okay with that fact, even if I don't know why. And so we get back, we do a little celebration for Angelina's birthday. She said she didn't want anything too big. She just wanted to hang out with us all alone, which is exactly what we did. We talked. A little later, Ron comes by to the shop and he asks me like if he can help out around. And I was like, you should really ask your brothers and not me, because they're the heads. I just help them. George says that like the help would be beneficial, so we have Ron stick around. Ron is acting insanely weird. I don't know what his issue is or why he was acting weird. I think I know now, but I didn't at the time. I want to state that I was oblivious at that piece of time. So we are in the shop, and he would just come around and be like, oh, do you need me to clean your desk? And I was like, can you stock the shelves and not clean this? I'm like checking people out. And he was like, the shelves are stocked. And then he was like, I'll help you with her. And I was like, thank you, Ronald. He would just do things to get on my nerves, so then I'd be like, Ronald, because that's his full name, so I call him that when I'm insanely annoyed with him, which is what I felt a lot of the times. And then finally, he was like, so why did you ask me to the Yule Ball? And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, in 4th year. And I was like, why are we talking about this? That was 4th year. And he was like, yeah, but you did ask me. Why? And I was like, I don't know. Ron, that was forever ago. And then he was like, well, yeah, but like, was I the first person you asked? And I was like, yeah, but you said no. And he was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, why are you sorry? You said it back then. I'm not your type. Don't apologize for that. It's fine. And he was like, I mean, you are my type though. And I was like, I'm not blonde, so I don't know how I'm your type. And he was like, well, I just didn't think that you were my type because you were Slytherin, but I think you are my type. And I was like, thank you? He was like, so why did you ask me? And I was like, it doesn't really matter. It was forever ago. I think I just wanted to go with you. I don't know. And he was like, well, did you like me? And I was like, I had like a puppy crush, but it wasn't anything deep. It's long gone. He just sort of like looked at me and I was like, right, I'm gonna start making dinner. A very awkward conversation, if I may say so myself. Pansy comes and visits, who tells me that she's been getting close to Luna Lovegood. Hello? So I was like, interesting, you're getting close to her. You should have like a lot to say about her. And then Pansy was like, do I? And I was like, you do. I was like, could it be possible that you may have a little crush on Luna Lovegood? And Pansy was like, well, to be honest, I always had a crush on you. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, but you were into George, but I do see a lot of you in Luna. And I was like, what? Luna? And she was like, yeah, you guys are really similar, but I like her, Luna. And I was like you like her or you like her? And she was like, okay, I admit, I have feelings for Luna. And I was like, what? That is so cute. I also announced my engagement. She gives me her blessing once again, and then she goes, I better be invited to the wedding now. I was like, of course you will. I love you. You're the best. I give you all my blessings to you and Luna, and you and Luna better get married or else I will cry. Holiday comes up once again. This was the first holiday ever where both of my parents came to the borough for Christmas. So I was like, this is exciting. My dad still didn't like super approve of George, but it's fine. It's cool. I am like in the kitchen during like on Christmas Eve, I believe. Was it Christmas Eve or was it Christmas Eve? It was a little bit before Christmas. Anyways, I'm in the kitchen and I'm like cleaning up the dishes because that's just what I do. I help around like wherever I stay. So I'm like cleaning up the dishes. And my dad comes in and he was like, can I ask you something? And I was like, ask away. And then he's like, why didn't you pursue Ron? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? I never like even tried to pursue Ron. And he was like, well, you asked him to the Yule Ball. And I was like, how do you know about that? And he was like, well, Ron and I talk often. And I was like, you talk to Ron often. Why? He was like, oh, well, Ron like sent me a letter one day and I replied and we've been talking since. And I was like, why is Ron sending you letters? And he was like, oh, well, we started like talking about you a little bit, but then I got to know Ron really well. And I just think that like Ron would be a better match for you than your current fiance. And I was like, what? I think that your relationship with Ron is insanely inappropriate. And I think that you coming up to me and telling me this is also insanely inappropriate. And I'm going to ask you to stop this conversation and to respect my relationship and to respect my future brother-in-law and not talk to him that often because that's weird. And he was like, I understand. And I was like, I don't talk to Ron often, so the fact that you guys are conversating is weird. And he was like, well, you have to talk to him often because like he's your boyfriend's brother. And I was like, yeah, but we don't talk to each other like that. So the fact that you guys are sending each other letters, I was like, do you send letters with Ginny? And he was like, no, that's weird. And I was like, precisely. So it's also weird for you to send letters to Ron and not George. My dad leaves the kitchen and I was like, hey, Ron, can you help me with something? And Ron comes in and I was like, I don't know why you sent my dad a letter. And he was like, oh, well, I was just asking him about you to make sure you were okay. Like, that was all the way back in 6th year. And I was like, you've been talking to my dad since 6th year? And he was like, it's only because I care about you. Like, genuinely, I was just looking out for you as a friend. And I was like, I understand, and I need you to never send him a letter again. Especially if it's about me. Unless I am, like, on the brink of death. And Ron was like, oh, why? And I was like, George can send him a letter if I need him to send my father a letter. You have like completely overstepped your boundary and made me like insanely uncomfortable. And then George walks in and was like, why were you sending her father letters? And I was like, what the fuck? And then George was like, I wasn't meaning to overlisten to the conversation. I just was confused on why you asked Ron to help you and not me. And I was like, it's okay. It's not your fault. And then George was like, you should not be sending letters to Monique's father. I don't know why you thought that was okay in the first place. And then Ron was trying to explain that it came from a place of concern, and then George was like, right, and if you're concerned about Monique, you should probably talk to Monique first instead of talking to her father. And then I was like, yeah, exactly. So then we leave. Ron does not come back with us to the shop, even though like he came with us to the Burrow from the shop. He didn't end up coming with us like to the shop, and then he just asked us to like send his things back to him with an owl, which was really weird, but he said he felt too awkward to like come around and talk to us. And I was like, okay, I guess. We were all really confused by it. Like, we thought he wanted to be at the shop that year because Hermione was at Hogwarts, so we didn't really understand. I felt really bad about the conversation that happened with Ron at the Burrow over holiday, so I did send him a letter, and I was like, hey, I'm sending you this because you sent us a letter like not wanting to come here and telling us to send your stuff back, and I kind of just wanted to make sure that like we're still friends and okay, because I do care about you and I understand you were concerned, but I also need to set that boundary because like learning that you and my dad were like messaging about me for years just made me really uncomfortable. And I'm sorry. And then Ron like sends me a letter back and was like, no, I'm sorry. You're right. I should have come to you and I didn't because I was nervous. But that's my fault and I'll do that next time. I'm glad that we're good. It was not good. Hermione, who then sent me a letter and was like, I understand that you want to make a move on my boyfriend, but I'm going to ask you to stop. And I was like, what the fuck? And then just in the letter, she was like, if you are in a group setting with Ron, do not talk to him, do not sit next to him, do not touch him, do not hug him, do not put your hand on his shoulder, do not hand him anything. If you need to hand him something, hand it to someone else so they can hand him something, and do not ever be alone with him. And I was like, whoa, what is happening? What did I do? I've done nothing, absolutely zero. I have been innocent in this whole situation. So I'm like, girl, what is your problem? Ron's birthday comes up and Jordan and Fred are like, we have to do something for his birthday. So we all go out into town. I am insanely wary because Hermione has sent me this large angry letter, like telling me to stay away from him essentially. So I am like insanely stressed out. And then we're like in town and Ron's like, why are you being so distant to me? And I was like, I just like looked at him and he was like, if this is about Hermione's letter, you can just ignore her. And I was like, what? He was like, Monique, if I felt a problem with what you were doing, like I would tell you. Hermione's just being Hermione. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And he's like, Hermione's always unfair to you. Just don't worry about it. I have everything covered. She's not going to send you another letter like that. I told her not to send the first one in the first place. And I was like, okay, I understand. And he's like, I'm really sorry that happened. And I was like, okay. Then I ended up talking to him a little more, but I was like really scared. So I did not touch him at all. I didn't even hug him. He like asked me, he was like, can I have a hug? And I was like, no. And he was like, why? And I was like, your girlfriend scares me. Sorry, she does. That same day, Fred checks in with me, and Fred is essentially just like, hey, I have a very weird question, and I don't want you to take offense to what I'm about to ask you. And I was like, okay, what's up? And Fred was like, you still like George, right? And I was like, yeah, I still like George. And he was like, you prefer him over anyone? And I was like, over everyone. And he was like, over Ron? And I was like, yes. And he was like, are you sure? I was like, I'm positive. Fred was like, I'm really sorry if that sounded like I doubted you for a second. I'm scared that George is gonna get hurt, and I don't want them to be hurt, and I especially wouldn't want you to hurt them. And I was like, it's not gonna happen, I promise. Like, George is my person. And then Fred was like, that sentence is all I needed to hear. The twins turned 24. Angelina and I threw a surprise party for them. We invite some of their friends. It's amazing. We end up having a prank war with a bunch of the supplies that we have from the shop. Harry and I were like in the kitchen, and we were both just grabbing water because we were thirsty. And Harry was like, out of all the people in the world, I'm glad that you're gonna be my sister-in-law. And I was like, I'm glad you're gonna be my brother-in-law. Like, you make Jenny really happy. And he was like, you do the same thing for George. And we were just kind of like relating our experiences to like dating people from the same family, and talking about like how we were happy that like our other friend was dating someone from the same family, and how that would eventually make us related. Luna confesses to me that she has a crush on Pansy, and I was like, Luna, you should make a move on Pansy. Not because I knew that Pansy had a crush on her, but because I knew that Pansy had a crush on her. The next day, after like we closed down the shop, George thanks me for the party because the surprise party was my idea, and then asks me if he can paint my nails, and I was like, sure. We have a very good talk about like my parents, and then he asks me about how Pansy's been doing, since Pansy has been like my closest friend for the longest amount of time. I tell him all about like Pansy and Luna, and like how they both confess to liking each other, and how I'm trying to set them up. And then he tells me about Lee and updates me on how Lee has been doing, and we just sort of update each other on how our friends are doing, because like even though we are partners, we're also best friends underneath that. Like, we tell each other everything. And then afterwards I paint his nails because I like painting their nails. It makes me happy. My parents come by, and they like kind of wanted to talk to everyone on a much more personal level than they had before. And then they were like, so when is the wedding gonna be? Which we then set the date for May 20th, 2000, which still has not come up yet in like even the time that I've spent there now. Like, I'm still just engaged to George. And for like relative, it is currently 1999. Once my birthday came around, I did not really want people over that year, just because like I'd seen a lot of people throughout the year, and like, you know, enough drama had happened and stuff like that, and I just kind of wanted it to be like a small thing with just the family. And by the family, I mean like me, George, Fred, Angelina, the family, because that was like, we all lived together, so it was our family, and we could do whatever that night, and we did. We just had cake, talked, sipped fire whiskey. It was nice. However, Ron did send me a letter saying like happy birthday, he hoped I was having a good day, and that he like really needed to talk to me because he missed me. And then he sent me fudge for my birthday that he had made, which it was actually pretty good. Like, I'd never tasted Ron's cooking before, and I was like, okay, your fudge is pretty good. I'd rate it 10 out of 10. Nice fudge. I really like fudge too. Like, if you don't know that about me, I love fudge. So I was like, he just sent me fudge? Okay. He comes around, so we decide that we all like just need a break, because we had just been like drilling on work with the shop. So we were like, okay, let's take a hiatus from the shop and we'll go to the Burrow, see the family. So we go to the Burrow, we pretend it's the old days. We go down to Little Village, we ride our brooms, and we play fake Quidditch. It's not real Quidditch, it's fake Quidditch. But we have a blast with Lee. Ron asks to go back to the shop with us because like he really needs to talk to us, and he said that he was just kind of having a hard time because him and Hermione had broken up. So we like end up going back, and he basically explains that they broke up because they're just too different, they disagree on too much, they fight too much, and like there's a lot of problems just happening all the time. And we were like, we kind of see that. It's a little obvious. So we go back to the shop with him. George was like, you guys should still take a break. Like, you should help out Ron since Ron's your friend and stuff, and we'll just start running the shop again. So I go with Ron and we're hanging out. And Ron's like, I really need to talk to you. And I was like, what is going on? And he was like, this is gonna sound crazy. And I was like, I've heard you say a lot of crazy things. Whatever you have to tell me, it can't sound that crazy. And Ron basically says that he has always liked me and that he thinks he's always going to like me. And I was like, what are you saying? And he was like, I just think that you should give me a chance and that like we should go on a date, because I did break up with Hermione, and a part of that reason is because I want to pursue something with you. And I was like, I don't know like what your problem is right now. And he was like, I don't have a problem. I've always liked you and I'm trying to make a move on you. And I was like, so you've always liked me? And he was like, well, I didn't want to admit like how attracted I was to you at first, but then like the longer that I got to know you, I did like you. I realized in our 5th year that I really liked you, but you just didn't seem that interested because you had already started dating George. And I wanted you to have a date to the Yule Ball, but I didn't think that you'd start dating him. And I don't want you to date them anymore. And I was like, what? This is insanely inappropriate of you. And he was like, what? And I was like, you come to my house knowing I am engaged to your brother to confess that you think that I should go out with you and leave your brother for you. And he was like, yes. And I was like, do you not understand like how inappropriate this conversation is and how inappropriate this entire interaction is? I need you to stop. And he was like, what? And I was like, Ron, what the hell? And then he's like, I'm not trying to be inappropriate. And I was like, I don't know how you think this isn't inappropriate right now. And he was like, because it's not. And I was like, it is inappropriate. I'm literally getting married to your brother. And then he was like, then don't. And I was like, what? And then he was like, I need to leave, Monique. I have to tell you that because I can't not tell you that, because the longer that you don't know, the longer that I'm gonna have to pretend like it doesn't exist when it does. And I was like, I don't think you should have broken up with Hermione if this is why you did it. And he was like, fine, or whatever. Say that. Be that way. And I was like, I don't know why you're doing this. Why you didn't tell me sooner? And he was like, because I thought that like you and George would eventually break up. And I was like, so you were waiting for us to break up so I could be on the rebound? And he was like, kind of, yeah. And I was like, please go upstairs. Please don't talk to me about this right now. This is too much. And he was like, what do you mean too much? I was like, this entire interaction is too much and it's inappropriate and I can't do this. And I need to be alone for just a second to absorb everything you've just told me. And I think you need to tell George. And he was like, I can't tell George what I just said. And I was like, okay, you need to leave. But don't leave the shop, but just leave me alone for a little while until I talk to you. And he was like, will you talk to me today? And I was like, maybe not today, but I will for sure talk to you tomorrow. And then he left. And then I said my safe word. And I have not shifted back there since. I hope you guys enjoyed my years of story time. I love telling stories. I missed it. If you have made it this far in the video, I am gonna announce I am starting a shifting podcast very soon. It's gonna be uploaded here on YouTube. And I do plan on having some guests come to the podcast. I have already like gotten some people gathered up. Of course, I might gather up more people. But surprise, if you made it all the way here, you know about it early. It's happening in the near future. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I hope you have a fantastic day or night. And as always, happy birthday!